You wake up every day trying to be liked, and you call it being good. You soften your voice. You edit your truth. You apologize for taking up space. Meanwhile, someone colder says less, moves slower, and takes everything you wanted without asking for permission. This world does not reward the most agreeable. It rewards the most controlled. You either understand how power moves through human emotion, or you spend your life reacting to those who do. You either read the room before it turns against you, or you become the lesson everyone else learns from. This speech is about cutting the invisible chains that keep you polite, powerless, and predictable. This is about stepping into the kind of freedom that does not beg for approval. This is the intelligence that watches quietly while others perform. This is the discipline that turns emotional need into strategic choice. This is the edge that makes you respected before you are understood. Before you go deeper, you need to hear this clearly. These principles already shape your life, whether you accept them or not. Predators already live by them. You deserve to understand them, so you are never hunted again. You are not here to be liked. You are here to become untouchable. Type in the comments, "I choose power over permission." Now watch how desire for love turns into desire for control, and finally into dangerous freedom. You speak fastest when you feel uncertain, and that speed betrays you. Every extra explanation you give is a confession of need. Every nervous clarification teaches others exactly where your balance breaks. Silence is not empty space. Silence is a mirror that forces the other person to fill it with their intent. When you stop rushing to be understood, you start becoming unreadable, and unreadable is the beginning of control. Watch what happens in real conversations. You make a statement and the room goes quiet. The weak version of you feels that quiet is danger and scrambles to soften it. You add reasons. You add backstory. You add emotion. In that moment, you hand over your leverage. The other person now knows you crave approval more than outcome. But when you let the silence sit, when you hold eye contact and say nothing, the entire dynamic bends. The other person starts explaining themselves. They justify, they reveal motive. You learn more in 10 seconds of restraint than in minutes of talking. Manipulation feeds on reaction. It needs emotional noise to locate your pressure points. When you remove that noise, the manipulator loses their map. They probe harder, they test different angles. Each test is information for you and cost for them. Now the power has flipped. Without confrontation, without threat, without effort. This is why the most dangerous people in any room are rarely the loudest. They do not rush to be liked. They let others chase alignment. They answer questions with pauses, not panic. They let discomfort do the work. You think silence makes you invisible. In reality, it makes you magnetic, because people project meaning onto what they cannot read. Use this with discipline, not cruelty. You do not vanish to punish. You withhold to protect your position. You pause to observe, not to dominate. Speak when your words will redirect the room, not when your nerves demand relief. Remember this. Every time you rush to explain, you shrink. Every time you hold back, you expand. Silence does not make you weak. It makes you untouchable. You learned early that staying quiet felt safer than being seen. You learned that drawing attention invited judgment, and judgment felt like threat. So you mastered humility as armor. But the truth is brutal and simple. What is not noticed is not protected. What is not visible is not valued. The world does not reward what it cannot see. Attention is the marketplace of power. Every opportunity, every promotion, every invitation, every advantage flows first through the eyes of others. When eyes do not land on you, Doors do not open for you. Decisions move without you in the room. Narratives get written without your name inside them. Invisibility feels peaceful until you realize it is also permission for the world to forget you exist. When you step into controlled visibility, something strange happens. People start assigning meaning to your presence. Your words gain weight because they arrive less often. Your absence creates questions, and questions create demand. Attention is not about noise. It is about placement. You do not need to dominate every space. You need to choose the exact moment to enter and the exact moment to withdraw. Watch how power behaves in rooms that matter. The weakest voice speaks first and speaks most. The strongest presence speaks late and changes direction with a single sentence. They are not louder, they are positioned. They understand that focus is a spotlight, and whoever stands beneath it shapes what the crowd believes is important. You have been taught that seeking attention is vanity. That is a comfortable lie that keeps you small. Attention is not ego. Attention is leverage. When you guide where eyes move, you influence what minds accept. When you disappear at the right moment, you increase your perceived worth without asking for it. Use this with intention, not desperation. You do not chase stares, you design moments. You let your words speak before your voice does. You let anticipation build before your appearance lands. Never confuse constant exposure with impact. Remember this. Humility without visibility is self-erasure. Attention without discipline is self-destruction. But attention with control is reality bending in your favor. You crave signals that you matter, and that craving leaks through your behavior like heat through glass. You check faces for approval. You reread messages for tone. You adjust your stance to match whatever earns a nod. The moment someone senses that hunger, they gain a steering wheel attached to your chest. They reward you with warmth when you comply and withdraw when you resist, and soon your direction is no longer yours. That is predictability, and predictability is the doorway to control. Emotional hunger turns small interactions into negotiations for worth. You laugh faster than you feel you agree, before you think you volunteer, before you choose. Every rush to be accepted leaves a fingerprint that trained eyes can follow. Bosses exploit it, partners lean on it, friends grow comfortable directing it. None of this requires malice, only awareness of your need. When you cut the hunger, the world changes shape around you. You stop reaching first, and others start reaching toward you. You feel the urge to explain rise, and you let it pass. You feel the pull to perform, and you stay still. That stillness scrambles the old script. Without your predictable chase, people must guess at your motives, and guessing drains their leverage. Unreadable does not mean cold. Unreadable means self-sourced. You take praise without inflation and criticism without collapse. Your mood no longer swings on external weather. You begin to choose responses instead of leaking reactions. In that space, choices become sharp and clean. Use this as discipline, not armor against intimacy. You are not starving your heart. You are retraining it to feed itself. You still connect, but from fullness rather than need. You still care, but without bargaining your power away. Watch the shift when your yes becomes slower and your no becomes calm. Notice how offers change when desperation leaves voice. You leave things unfinished because you fear being the villain in someone else's story. You soften endings with maybe later, and let us see, and we will talk again. You think this keeps the peace, but what it really does is keep the battlefield active. Open doors invite return, and return invites pressure. Every loose thread becomes a handle for future manipulation. Half endings create long shadows. The other person holds on to hope, and hope quickly mutates into entitlement. They feel you owe them access because you never removed it. When expectations collide with reality, resentment forms, and resentment always looks for a target. This is how quiet revenge is born, not through loud conflict, but through slow leaking hostility. A clean break is not cruelty. It is clarity. Clarity removes fantasy, and fantasy is the fuel of ongoing struggle. When you end without ambiguity, the other side is forced to reorient their energy away from you. The wound may sting sharper at first, but it seals faster, and it does not fester. Most people avoid finality because they want to preserve their image as kind. But every time you trade clarity for comfort, you buy future chaos. You also tie a piece of your attention to a chapter that should already be closed. Divided focus weakens presence, and weak presence invites new challenges. Powerful endings are quiet and firm, no long explanations, no emotional negotiations, no lingering availability. You state what is over, and you remove the pathways back in, not with anger, not with apology, but with stability. That stability signals that the decision is complete, and completion kills manipulation. This applies to relationships, alliances, habits, identities. Anything you leave half alive will return when you are least prepared. Anything you end fully loses the ability to haunt you. Use this with restraint, not with impulse. You do not cut connections to escape discomfort. You cut when the cycle itself is the threat. You do not burn bridges in emotion. You dismantle them in awareness. Remember this. Unresolved endings become future battles. Clean endings become quiet foundations. You learn that constant availability feels like love. You reply fast. You show up instantly. You keep the door open at all hours. It feels loyal, generous, dependable, but what it really teaches others is that your time has no weight. What is always accessible is slowly taken for granted, and what is taken for granted is quietly devalued. Distance is not absence of care. Distance is the frame that gives presence its meaning. When someone can reach you without effort, they stop preparing for you. They stop choosing you deliberately. You become part of the background noise of their day instead of a decisive moment inside it. Watch how scarcity changes behavior when your responses slow people think before speaking to you. When your schedule fills, they treat your time as something earned, not assumed. When your availability becomes selective, your arrival gains gravity. This is not arrogance, this is economics of human attention. You weaken yourself when you over-deliver access. You teach others that they do not need to invest to receive you. They begin to take more, ask more, expect more, while giving less in return. Imbalance grows quietly until resentment replaces appreciation on both sides. When you reclaim distance, something recalibrates. You stop circling others, and they begin to orbit you. Anticipation returns. Curiosity sharpens. Your words land heavier because they arrive less often. Your absence does work on your behalf. This does not mean disappearing to create fear. It means choosing presence with intention. You still show warmth, but you no longer leak it without direction. You still connect, but you do not dissolve your boundaries to keep the connection alive. Distance also protects your clarity. Constant access floods your nervous system with demands and distractions. Space restores choice. Choice restores power. Use this with balance, not with games. You do not vanish to punish. You withdraw to reset value. You step back to let others feel the weight of your contribution. Remember this: what is rare is respected. What is constant is consumed. What is chosen becomes powerful. You believe truth will save you if you just explain it clearly enough. You believe that fairness lives inside facts and that words can clean misunderstandings. But power does not move through logic first, it moves through perception. Long before your truth arrives, your reputation has already been heard. And once that story settles into minds, it becomes harder than stone. The moment you start over explaining, you signal insecurity. The room feels it, even if it does not name it. You sound like you are asking for permission to be trusted, instead of assuming it. Every extra defense you add makes the original doubt feel more real. Innocence argues quietly. Guilt argues in detail. This is how the human ear decodes tension, even when the mind wants to be fair. A strong image removes the need for verbal rescue. When people already associate you with consistency, discipline, and results, they forgive silence. They fill gaps in your favor. They interpret ambiguity as depth, not deception. Your absence of explanation becomes evidence of confidence instead of proof of fault. Reputation is built before the crisis, not during it. You shape it through patterns, not speeches. How you move when nothing is on the line decides what people believe when everything is. Show reliability in small moments, and you will not need to perform when the stakes rise. You sabotage yourself when you rush to control the narrative with panic. Panic smells like collapse. Instead, you let your track record answer for you. You let time speak instead of noise. When others scramble to justify, you remain still, and the stillness itself becomes an answer. This does not mean lying low forever. It means selecting when your voice actually multiplies your position. A single, measured statement placed at the right moment outweighs a flood of frantic clarification. Use this with discipline, not with deception. You do not construct a false image to mislead. You align your behavior so tightly with your values that your image becomes undeniable. You let truth become visible through motion, not explanation. Remember this: facts can be debated, perception is defended. When your reputation is clean, your silence becomes authority. When your image is solid, your truth does not need to shout. You become easiest to control at the exact moment you care the most about a single result. The more you need a specific answer, the louder your fear becomes inside your behavior. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in the way you rush or hesitate. Need broadcasts itself before a word is ever spoken, and whoever senses it gains leverage over you. Attachment narrows your vision. It turns wide landscapes into tunnel sight. You stop seeing options and begin chasing outcomes. You accept conditions you would normally reject. You tolerate delays, disrespect, and uncertainty because the goal feels too important to lose. This is how intelligent people slowly bargain themselves into weaker positions without noticing the trade. Detachment widens the field again. When you release emotional grip, you regain strategic movement. You no longer chase, you evaluate. You no longer plead, you decide. The room feels the difference immediately. Conversations change texture. Offers arrive differently. Resistance softens, not because you push harder, but because you stop needing the push. This is why the calm voice in conflict often controls the direction, not because it is right, but because it is not desperate. Emotional neutrality confuses manipulation. It removes the hook where others usually attach pressure. You become hard to steer because you are no longer leaning forward. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop bargaining your power for reassurance. You still pursue goals, but you do not collapse around them. You still desire outcomes, but you accept that no single door defines your survival, that acceptance frees you to walk away, and the ability to walk away is the sharpest edge in any negotiation. Use this with control, not avoidance. You do not detach to escape challenge. You detach to face challenge without distortion. You do not go cold. You go clear, remember this. Attachment chains you to reaction. Detachment hands you choice. And choice in the right moment is more lethal than force. You just absorbed 7 layers of law, drawn from the 48 laws of power. But knowledge locked inside your head changes nothing if your behavior stays the same. You will not master all 7 at once, and that is exactly how people fail. You pick one lesson that connects to your current struggle. You apply it for 7 days without exception. You watch how people react when you stop seeking approval. You feel the shift when your silence lasts longer than their comfort. You learn more in 1 week of deliberate restraint than in years of emotional overexposure. You are not being taught to hurt the innocent. You are being trained to stop offering your throat to those who would gladly cut it. You are learning to defend your time, your energy, and your identity in a world that rewards emotional theft. You use this knowledge to build boundaries, not victims. You use it to walk through conflict without bleeding everywhere. You use it to become calm where others become desperate. Imagine what happens when good people finally understand power as deeply as the ruthless always have. One path keeps you likable, nervous, and easy to manage. The other path makes you strategic, grounded, and impossible to move without permission. One version of you explains, begs, and hopes. The other version chooses, observes, and decides, not to control others, but so you are never controlled again. The question is not which path sounds better. The question is which version of yourself you are tired of being. If this shifted something inside you, press like so. This message reaches someone who is still shrinking themselves to survive. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because every week you sharpen another edge of your mind. And tell me in the comments which of the 7 lessons hit you the hardest and why. You were never meant to live on your knees emotionally. You were meant to move with clarity and calm force. Stay sharp, stay ethical, and stay 10 steps ahead.